Hello and welcome again to another of our videos. And what are we doing today? We're looking at wheelchairs. Not just any wheelchairs, but specifically wheelchairs in Disney and Universal Studios in Florida. Now, I know a lot of you saying, but you don't have a wheelchair. Well, we decided to have one this time, didn't we?
We did.
And why did you think that was a good idea? Well, actually, it wasn't you who thought it was a good idea, was it? It was everybody else.
It was the only condition I could go.
Yeah, that's right. Because you've been having a bit of trouble lately, haven't you, with the walking? Anyway, so we've made this little video because we've been watching a few videos, haven't we, about disabled people using the rides, and there were some good ones and some bad ones, but they didn't really show you a lot about how you actually got on and off the ride. They just showed you got on the ride and then they said, oh, now we're off the ride, and you didn't get to see the bit in between. So we thought we'd try and capture a few of those moments, but we didn't get them all, did we? And of course, you don't get on every ride in Disney, do you? In 14 days, there's no way you get on every ride. So, we are going to run through all the rides that we went on, and this is Sue, by the way. I think this is your first time properly on a video, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe my last.
Yeah. It might be your last, yeah, absolutely. First thing we're going to talk about are the actual car parking, because unless you're staying in Disney, and that's, I think now, the easiest way of doing it, you're going to have to drive to one of the car parks, and it doesn't matter which one you go to, we found them all the same. They are a hell of a walk from the car to the entrance of the park, aren't they? And we noticed that if you wanted to use these little tram train things that they have, the only way you could get on those is that you had to fold up your wheelchairs and pushchairs, put them in a little holder thing that they had, and then you had to climb onto the train. And were you going to climb onto the train?
No. And with 4 pushchairs and 2 wheelchairs, that was going to be an adventure.
And 17 kids. And so we never actually used that train. We had to walk. And some of the time we got to park at the front because we found one of the guys gave us a good tip, didn't he? He said, tell them you've got a wheelchair and they will let you park, not in the disabled bay because you have to have a special pass for that, but they will let you park down by the front, and then it's not so far.
And we park on the very first.
In the first lane.
Yeah.
So you can go from the Magic Kingdom car park to the actual Magic Kingdom either by monorail or ferry boat. So let's look at the monorail first. What did you think to the monorail? We tried it once, didn't we?
We only did it once because we thought it was going to be more difficult than it was. Because there's a huge ramp to go up and down, but actually that wasn't as hard as we thought.
The monorail doesn't run everywhere, does it?
No.
You can't get to all the parks with the monorail, which is a shame.
It is the quickest way to get into Magic Kingdom. The ferry boat is a lot slower.
We did it once because we went for breakfast at the Grand Floridian for breakfast, and we found it very easy actually, apart from it's a bit of a steep climb to get up onto the monorail platform. It's a very steep roll downhill on the way out, and that's difficult when you haven't got assisted brakes on your wheelchair. But actually, getting on and off the monorail was quite good. They had a lot of staff and they had special ramps. Now, we hired our wheelchair when we got there, and there's only 2 companies that we found online, and we decided on this particular company called K&M. And they were very good. They dropped the wheelchair off at the villa, didn't they, and picked it up afterwards. So they were very good, and we were quite pleased with them. And we decided to have a 20-inch wheelchair, so that there was plenty of room and you're going to be comfortable for the fortnight. And your mother, who also had a wheelchair, she had a 16-inch. But big warning to anybody thinking of hiring one of these 20 inches, they are very big. And apart from the fact it was difficult to get it in and out of the car, it was that big. There are a lot of the rides where it only just fits. In fact, there's one ride that we'll show you shortly where it didn't fit. We had to use a different wheelchair to get on. But on the monorail, it was pretty straightforward, weren't it? And getting on and off it, they radio ahead, they know you're coming, they're waiting with the ramp, and that was all worked out very nicely. What did you think?
Very easy, very painless.
So we can recommend the monorail if you're using the wheelchair, and if you're strong enough or fast enough to get up and down the ramps, or you've got a motorised one, that's the way to go, isn't it? One of the things we did notice was the actual exit gates, certainly down on the Grand Floridian, are a little bit narrower than the actual monorail doors, and this was particularly tight to get through. This took a little bit of manoeuvring, and I think we were scraping paint off the wheels as we went through. So if you ever come to redesign it Disney, that's something to look at. Gives a little bit more room. So, a ferry boat.
Ferry boat, easy, simple, slower, but gets us all on. Wheelchairs, pushchairs, children, everybody.
And I think the thing to realise with the ferry boat is it's actually almost a ride in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of the adventure.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
It sails less frequently, I think, than the monorails run, but they've got 2 or 3 running at the same time. What do you think? It's about a 10-15 minute crossing, maybe?
Probably every 10 minutes.
Yeah. You get a cracking view of the castle as you go across the water, and I think that's one of the things.
At night time, it's spectacular to come back on.
Oh yeah, because you get to see the fireworks. Come over when the fireworks run, and you get to see the fireworks across the top of the lake. That's really good. The nice thing is the ramp is slightly shallower. It's easier to get on. There's a lot more room. You feel a bit more relaxed on there. You're not as cramped, and it's certainly just easier to do. Right, looking at the rides, there are 2 or 3 different types. The first one that we're going to look at is the ride cars where they actually have a special disabled wheelchair ride car, and it opens up to allow the wheelchair to actually get onto the car, sometimes on their own, sometimes with a passenger, and they only have, I think, 1 on each ride, so you have to wait for that car to come round to get on. The first one that we went on was Winnie the Pooh, and you didn't particularly like Winnie the Pooh for a particular reason, didn't you?
I was on it on my own. It sort of defeats the object of being with the rest of the family. It was the only ride that I didn't get to ride with someone or the whole family. So for me, it was a bit of a downer for me. But the ride itself, I mean, getting on and off it was easy.
Yeah.
Everything else was fine. It's just...
And we couldn't figure out whether there was enough room to actually sit somebody on with you. They seemed
I can't remember now what it was like inside.
A lot of space when we were sat behind. You seemed to be lost on the car on your own. The other rides that we went on actually had a passenger rider's seat next to the wheelchair, which was really nice because then it's a bit more of a family experience, isn't it? So the next ride that we went on was Buzz Lightyear. And this is one of the rides where we very quickly realised that a 20-inch wheelchair is just too big, because the ramp that they used to get you onto the ride, well, it is a ramp. It's the sort of the back of the car folds down into a ramp, and you roll up it, and then they fold it up behind you again. And it's 20-inch wide, and the wheels were literally jammed in as we were pushing it up. All the staff, I've got to say, all the staff were really good, weren't they?
Exceptional. What I'd like to say is that they try and keep all families together, which is a plus for me, because you don't want to be out on your own. You want to be with the rest of your group if you can be. They always asked how many. We said 13, not a problem. And
it didn't faze them at all, did it? You'd say, there's 14 of us all together. They go, yeah, okay, well, just come and stand over here for a second and we'll sort you all out. And they did. They kept us all together. So the Buzz Lightyear one was relatively straightforward to get in and out. It was a bit of a squeeze getting in. They seemed to get you off quicker than they got you on. But it was basically dead simple. They open the side of the car, they push you into it, they shut the door up behind you, and you're away. One of the good things that happens, we found on more than one occasion, was when you got back to the end of the ride, and I think it's because it took that little bit extra time to get you on, that they say to you, would you like to have another ride?
You say no?
And of course you go, oh, okay. And we tended to get 2 rides, didn't we? And it happened nearly every time we got on a ride of that sort of nature.
Yeah.
So when we got to the other end, we finally decided we had to get off, because everybody else, of course, had been kicked off on the first ride, hadn't they?
They used to come searching for us because they wondered where we were.
But they did actually like the idea that if they wanted to go on a ride, they'd come and find us, didn't they, and say, we'll all go together, because you could walk up and say, oh, there's 14 of us, and they just say, okay, on you go. One thing I will note is that we didn't have the Disney, I think it's called DRS, it was the disabled sort of pass that you get that allows you quick access and various other features in the park, because you're not actually registered disabled, are you? We just found it easier with the wheelchair. So we couldn't actually apply for that. And if you go on to their website and see the conditions that you've got to meet to get one of those, you more or less do have to have a blue badge and be registered disabled. One of the rides where you are pushed into the carriage is the Nemo ride in Epcot. They've got like a side loading feature on one of the cars. I'm told it's the same in Little Mermaid. We didn't get to Little Mermaid.
Not this time.
They snuck on without us. They didn't take us.
Went without us.
Yeah, we turned around. They'd been on Little Mermaid and not told us. But if you watch closely, you can see the car sort of unfolding, and you just drive the wheelchair down the ramp. Dead easy, dead simple. Didn't take 2 minutes to get on and off, which is really good, because you didn't like the idea of holding everybody up, did you? But you can see here how it's a little bit tight. We're just nearly catching the sides. But look how simple that is. If only all the rides would have been that simple to get on and off. And then push it in. So Little Mermaid was very similar.
So we know. So we were told.
Yeah, yeah. We'd like to try it. Maybe next time you can wait for us. I think the next ride was the big one. I think it might be Toy Story Mania.
Oh, my favourite.
Yeah, Toy Story Mania. If you haven't been on the ride, you've got to go on this. Don't miss it. It is just a fabulous ride. It's so much fun. And it's even better when they say, would you like to go twice? Now, we went on this twice, and both times we were sent round again, weren't we?
Yes, which my grandson thoroughly enjoyed.
So, yeah, it's a definite bonus to take a wheelchair. Even if you don't need one, I would take one anyway. So, this is a little bit more technical. It's a very clever idea. They actually take the cars out of circulation, so you've got plenty of time at leisure to get onto the car, and they fasten you in, and they sort of reinsert you back into the ride, which is a really clever idea, because one of the things that I think bothers most people is the fact that you've had to stop the ride and hold it up for a significant amount of time while they get you on and off. And I think that's when panic ensues, isn't it? So,
well, let's face it, at this time I was not used to being in a wheelchair. I'd never been in a wheelchair in my life, and this was not my idea of fun in thinking what people were thinking.
Yeah. It's sort of, you were a bit self-conscious, weren't you, being in this wheelchair? So we thought it was all going swimmingly. We got onto the ride, didn't we? And they, like the other ones, you push in, they click up the back, and you go, all right, off we go. Next thing you know, they're strapping us in with about 3 or 4 ratchet straps, a set of wheel chocks to hold you down, and you start to wonder exactly what this ride's going to do. And when we got on it, it was quite a fast ride. We did quite a lot of spinning.
And amazing. Yeah.
I don't think you would have ever shot off it. I think maybe the old ratcheting's a bit over the top.
I think it's a Disney thing. I think they don't want people to hurt themselves or sue them.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You've got to be safe. You've got to be safe.
And I never ever once felt unsafe on any ride.
But I think for me, this ride wasn't that significant in terms of the rapid movements, etc., that it needed quite this much attention.
But you're a bit more technical to me, aren't you? I mean, I quite like being fastened in, knowing that I was
you
safe.
You were definitely fastened in. You were fastened in here. Look at this. He's going to fasten you in.
I didn't like this one. I can't see why I didn't have a normal seatbelt.
No, and it was you're sort of a bit trussed up, weren't you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was a cross between a mummy and one of these asylums where they've got you in a straitjacket. But eventually you'll see we do actually start to move. And the only, I thought, quite amusing thing was that they're really not, again, the staff's brilliant, aren't they? They really are. They're as friendly as anything, nothing's too much trouble.
Never feel as though you're being a nuisance.
No, absolutely. They put you at ease. And then they say, we just want the supervisor to check this. And I think, again, the biggest problem was your 20-inch wheelchair. This wheelchair only just fit in this car, and they were struggling to get the straps on because there wasn't enough room for them to get in to fasten the straps on. But they had to go. And then he said, we need to fetch the supervisor. So he apologised for the slight delay. He had to make sure that it looked like it was fastened in correctly. And he did, didn't he? And he came and he said, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And we moved 10 metres down the road, reinserted into the ride, and we get to the starting gate. And then two more people come say, we've just got to check everything's fastened in okay. And we went, but there's like 5 people just there who've just spent 10 minutes locking it into place, and it doesn't matter. It's our job, we have to do it. So we had another inspection, didn't we? There was no way you were coming out of that car by the time they'd finished. In fact, I didn't know if they were going to be able to get back out. Did you enjoy the ride? That's the main thing.
Yeah, it was worth all the time of waiting to get fastened in. All I felt for was my 2 granddaughters behind me couldn't get on a car till I was fastened in.
Hold on! I think we need to mention the fact that they don't just pull one car out of the ride, they pull 2. So if you're accompanied, like we said, by more people, they will bring all the cars out together and then reinsert you into the ride all together, so you're still travelling. Not that it made a lot of difference, because once you're in the ride, you're going round and round so fast you couldn't really tell it was on either side of you, could you? But it was nice that they, again, did try and keep all the family together. So big thumbs up for that. We enjoyed that. And I think there wasn't any of the rides where they really split us up, were there? I was expecting, I must admit, 1 or 2 where they said you go that way and they go that way and you didn't see each other again.
Yeah, no, I don't think with any ride we went separately. The beauty of it is we pretty much went our separate ways as well at certain times for rides. So sometimes there was only 5 of us to go on, or 4 of us, or whatever.
We didn't very often try and get all 14 on it once, did we? But, so I would say Toy Story, definite best ride in the park, I think, personally. Not everybody's going to agree with that, but definitely best ride in the park. But just beware, you might be there a while they get you fastened in. The next type of ride they have are the boat rides, and they have 3 of them we know of, or 3 of them that we went on. I think you might class Frozen as one of them as well, although it's not a boat like these 3 others.
Frozen, no wheelchair access?
No. I mean, there's lots of rides where you had to transfer, which we'll go on to later, and that's basically your choice, whether you want to struggle in and out. Some people, I mean, you watch some of the people in the wheelchairs where they can pull themselves out with their arms, can't they? Fling them themselves into the car, fling themselves back out again. That's great. Not so easy for you, is it? Once you're out of that chair, then you're pretty well immobile. And so there were quite a few of the rides where it was just never going to happen, and you just have to. Well,
it's getting in and out. It's
like the log flumes.
If the seats are low down, then
Splash
I'm not
Mountain.
getting out.
You weren't doing Splash Mountain. So the 3 rides we're looking at next are the Grand Fiesta Tour, which is in Epcot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
it's
in Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Spain, but no, it's in the Mexico Pavilion area. It's been there ever since it's always been there, and we've been on it loads of times. And all 3 of these are basically rafts with seats, and all the wheelchair access is the same. You basically enter it from the back and spin your wheelchair around and position yourself somewhere on the car. So the first ride that we're going to look at in that category is the Grand Fiesta Tour, and this is the one where we basically the first one we came unstuck, because they were very good again. Said, are you getting out of the wheelchair? And we said, no, we need to stay in the wheelchair. And we were looking out for the rides where it said you could stay in the wheelchair. And they've got little symbols on the walls that tell you whether it's a transfer or it's a stay in the wheelchair. And that's also on their app as well. You can find that on the app. And as soon as we got to the boat, they've got one disabled boat, so you have to wait for that one coming round.
On this one, even on the walkway, we couldn't get the chair down.
No.
We had to take posts out to get me down.
Yeah, they got like a rope and post affair, and you couldn't get round them. They were that tight, and there were one or two where people were saying, "Oh, how are you going to do that?" And in the end, we just pulled the posts out of the floor because they pulled out, pushed past them, and then put them back in again. So this one, I think, harks back to the days when they weren't really sort of DDA compliant, and they didn't have to worry about disabled people at all. Pushed through the little entrance gate that they have onto the ride, safety gate, and immediately realised this is a very, very tight fit. We had to do a 90-degree handbrake turn to go down the centre aisle. Now, I thought we'd gone down far enough. There was a line painted across the car. We'd passed that line, the back wheels had passed the line, and you can see in a second that Sue's feet are literally touching the front of the boat. There was nowhere else to go. We couldn't have got any further forward. But the guy seemed to say that it wasn't far enough forward. He was trying to put a chock bar behind the wheels, and he couldn't get it in for some reason. So in the end, we had to tow the whole wheelchair back out and transfer into a smaller wheelchair, which they had there available. And you can see this now in the second attempt. The thing is, getting the wheelchair off was actually harder than getting it on. And we'd sort of got jammed between the seats somehow. And this is the thing I don't understand, because they all look the same boat. If you go on Small World, it looks exactly the same boat, but maybe it's not, because on Small World we did exactly the same process, straight down to the front, onto the marked area where you've got to park, and we got room to spare. So obviously they haven't quite got the same width in the aisles, but I don't see why they couldn't get a car. Why can't they just take one of those boats and just trim bits off the seat slightly so you've got a little bit more room to manoeuvre? Why did it have to be that tight? I think it's just age. It's just a very old ride, and it's not designed for wheelchairs. Certainly not 20-inch one. But once we were on the ride, did you have a nice time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
We've seen it lots of times, haven't we? One thing we did notice, and all the guys commented on it, they put me and the two son-in-laws all down one side. We're not the lightest of people, are we? And with that and the high centre of gravity on the wheelchair, we did suddenly find ourselves tipping over to the left, and we thought we were going to get swamped. Next up is Living on the Land, which is a little ride which I can remember going on many years ago, where the twins were only babies. And this was the ride where actually you stayed on the back of the boat. You didn't have to push yourself down the aisle. It was a doddle. We just pushed on, they put a rope across, we just put the brakes on, there were no chocks or anything as I can recall. They might have chocked it, I can't remember. And we were away. And all these rides are very sedate. There's no rushing around on them, is there? So I really don't see why it's that big a problem. If you got the brakes on, where are you going? Finally, we went on the iconic Small World. Everybody has to do Small World. You can't go to Disney if you don't do Small World. It's not allowed. That's even including the son-in-law, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Henwood.
Mr. Henwood. Small World. We're going to sing it to you later. And this one, exactly the same design boat, but obviously a little bit wider in some respect, because we just pushed
I didn't go as far to the front though.
No, they didn't try and push you all the way to the front. Same again, we didn't seem to be so overbalanced either. We were fairly well balanced, and just, it's a gentle ride round. What was good was we actually got to sit with all the kids and be a part of it. Because again, you wouldn't want to be on a separate boat, would you? It was nice to see the faces. And I remember when the girls, when they were only like 2 or 3 years old, were mesmerised by this ride. And now we're getting to see the grandkids with the same smile on the face. So that was really good. So Small World.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Now we come to the most horrific ride in Hollywood Studios, and I'm not talking about the Tower of Terror. I'm talking about Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Train. You wouldn't believe it, would you? This was the most awful ride, I think, that we went on. Not because It was a bad ride.
No, the ride was amazing.
You loved the ride, didn't you?
Yeah.
But the disabled access was not up to scratch. Let me explain. They're cars, and it's the same style cars that they have on the Galaxy's Edge Rise of the Resistance. They are like very large cars, 2 rows, and you have to step over a step to get in, and then you think it drops down slightly inside as well, don't you?
Well, I fell over as I got inside.
Yeah. I can't remember that you actually restrain once you're in the car. I think you just hold on to the rope.
I just hold on.
And then you got sat down and we enjoyed the ride until we got to the end. And then as we came off, we ran into problems, didn't we? Now, just here, as we go into our dance class, which I thought was quite
amazing.
I mean, this is an amazing ride, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's very clever how they do it. But I can't understand, and you can see it just here, is that step to get into the car. Why is that step there? Why don't they have one of the cars that's got no step so you can literally walk in and walk out? It seemed nonsense to me. We got to the other end, and what happened? We couldn't get back out. And they just sat and watched us struggle, basically. And that was a bit naughty, I thought, because a few minutes in, and after we'd sort of got a bit panicked and we got a bit wound up and we're getting upset, weren't we? They said, let us take you out of the queue and over to a little area where we can get you out, and then we'll go and fetch the chair thing that they've got that assists you to get out, like a plank that they put on out, basically, that you can slide onto. Why did they take that long? Why take that long to tell us? So that was a definitely thumbs down. You could have done better than that. One of the rides that we would have liked to go on is the People Mover, which takes you all the way round part of the park in a little chair high up above all the rides, and it's very sedate and it's a really nice ride, isn't it? If you want to see that ride in more detail, then have a look at this link just here, which is my daughter's YouTube channel, A Messing Address, and she's got a video on there that's got quite a bit of the People Mover ride on it. The downside of the People Mover ride is that it's not the ride itself so much, it's getting to it. They've got a very narrow travelator, steep travelator. They don't allow pushchairs and wheelchairs on it, and we weren't getting up it. You can't manoeuvre on an escalator or a travelator.
I wouldn't feel safe, so.
It's not necessarily the riding it, it's the getting on and the getting off. So it's a bit of a non-starter for us. And again, it wouldn't take that much in this day and age for one of the stations, don't need to do them all, just have one of them, where they've got a lift, where you could ride up onto the platform. They could stop the People Mover momentarily while you actually got onto the car. And then, yes, you're not getting off anywhere else. You've got to come back to that station, but that's fine. We'd live with that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I know it's, part of the attraction of it is that you can get off at different places, but this to me is a really serious downside. There is an easier way of fixing this, and it's not expensive in the Disney world to be able to fix this. So Disney, get yourself sorted. There's people wanting to get onto this ride. Next, we are going to Universal to have a look at a couple of their rides. And the first one that we went on to was the Hogwarts Express. And what did you think to the Hogwarts Express?
Pretty simple. No major trouble. Nothing much to say because it was just simple.
I mean, it's not the most fantastic ride because you don't go that far.
But I like the effect of the ride is really good. I'm glad I went, but I'm wondering with this one if I'd have been better just walking on it.
You probably would have, yeah, because I found the some of the access points, and especially on the corner as well, a little bit tight to get round with the wheelchair.
If I recall, it wasn't wheelchairs that we had the problem with; it was pushchairs. Yeah. There was some problem where they were told to fold the pushchairs down. They've got babies asleep in them.
Yeah, they did. They made them fold them all up.
As we got to the ride,
I found 2 pinch points. The first one was the 9 3/4 wall that you go through. You're supposed to be like driving through the wall with the cases. That only just allowed me to spin the wheelchair around inside it. And the actual lift that takes you up onto the platform is a bit on the tight side. We didn't have a lot of room to manoeuvre. Once we got on the ride, it was a little bit cramped. But they managed to get there, and they had a little bit of trouble shutting the door behind you, didn't they? But they fixed it in the end. Next up on Universal was E.T. You've got to do E.T. We always do E.T. I think E.T. will be there forever. An ET is like almost a set of bicycles welded together. We decided that we would actually transfer off the wheelchair onto the ride, although you said that they did have a...
They did have one. When I assessed the ride, I knew I could step on it. The chairs were high, easy to sit on, easy to get off.
But that wasn't the end of the story, was it? Because you were sat on the end, and again, you've not got a massive restraint, you sort of hold it on yourself, and as it sort of sways a little bit on the way round, you started to get a little bit nervous, and we had to sort of reassure you that you weren't going to drop off. It was doable, and you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so that is one
on and off, easy enough.
We didn't get to see the actual wheelchair system, but apparently it's very similar to the Men in Black one, which we're going to have a look at now. Men in Black is an awesome ride, but don't take your mother-in-law.
Or don't warn your mother-in-law before she goes.
Or do warn your mother-in-law.
No, don't.
Well, we didn't. We didn't know what was coming, did we? We'd forgot. So it's quite a long queuing system, isn't it? You go through quite a few different systems. And this is the one where we had a lot of people pushing past us, didn't we? We're in the queue, pushing along slowly, and there were so many people pushing past us and squeezed in front of us, and we were like tapping on the shoulder, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? And they were, well, you're in a wheelchair and we're just pushing past you, we can get through for quicker. Anyway, they've got a fantastic system to get you into the car, haven't they? It's like you're placed on a cassette, and then the cassette's loaded into the car, and it's so quick. Seemed to take a few minutes to actually get strapped in, but it wasn't that long, as you'll see from the timer. So they push you into this. This one was, we did have to change chairs, didn't we?
I had to use my mother's chair for this one, yes.
Yes, the 20-inch chair doesn't
was
fit.
not fitting.
No. And you can see there's like a side rail either side that the chair's got to go in between, and the 20-inch chair's not doing it. So again, my tip, don't do 20-inch chairs.
You won't got 18 in here.
No, would have been tight. Well, that's a 16-inch, isn't it? So
they did say they had a chair for me to transfer into if I hadn't got another one.
Yeah, they've got their own wheelchairs. So it's never a problem. This guy was the friendliest guy on earth, wasn't he? Talked all the way through. It was really, really good. And a couple of minutes into the ride and you're all strapped in, job done. And then this gets super amazing, I think. Just watch this. Not that. This.
I couldn't understand how I was going to move from there to the ride.
No, how you get into the ride, watch. This is how we get you onto the ride. It's reminding me of Thunderbirds a bit. I thought you're going to end up in Thunderbird 2 here. And I still didn't figure out how you were doing it. I thought you were going to go through that wall somehow. I thought that wall was going to lift out of the way and you were going through the wall. Even you don't know how you're doing it, do you? You can see on your face you haven't got a clue how this is going to work. But, next thing you know, it's just like a shopping trolley. You're just being pushed along, and it literally just slides into place on the ride.
Missed that, you missed it.
I missed that bit, missed the best bit, but that was good. And it's a good job you were strapped in that well, because oh my God, did that spin. We thought we'd killed your mother.
I can't remember it being my favourite ride last time I went, so.
I think it's worth just talking about the park in general for disabled use. I mean, it's the first time I'd pushed a wheelchair anywhere, and there wasn't anywhere really where we said we're never going to be able to do that. Most of the areas are flat. There's one or two ramps, especially around the castle, that you have to go around, but nothing insurmountable. Most of it's wide enough. The only place we'd come a little bit unstuck was the tram lines on Main Street, because we kept getting the wheels caught in the actual tram lines, which was a bit of a nuisance. You had to sort of hit them at a certain angle to be able to get across them.
Yes, it was very painful going over the tram lines.
Yeah, and it's a long walk to get out of a place where there's no tram lines. And I haven't seen any trams. Did they have a tram? I've never seen a tram. The only downside I found with the whole park, apart from there was one restaurant that they wouldn't let us in, which we can't remember the name of. It's the old I'm going to put the name across just here. This is the name of the restaurant that we're talking about that we can't remember. They wouldn't let us in with a wheelchair, which I thought was really naughty, and they made us sit outside.
Yeah, but they won't let you in with pushchairs neither.
They won't let you in with pushchairs either, and I thought that was a bit.
Well, it seemed big enough inside.
Yeah, I mean, we had to walk around inside. I've got to say, it was the worst restaurant anyway, because they totally cocked up the order. They were just serving people willingly. They didn't know who they were serving. There were people all over
giving numbers away to wrong people.
Yeah, there were people going back behind us saying, but this isn't the food that we'd ordered, and they were just got it totally around the neck. So it was definitely a 0 stars for that one. Anyway, but apart from that, most of the places were really good, weren't they? The downside I found was a lack of undercover space if it rained, and by God did it rain. One day we absolutely got saturated, and everybody runs for cover and they all go the same place, and really you could do with a few more covered up areas, don't you think?
Yeah, but what we did find, and we didn't realise, that if you just come out of a show, they allow you to stay in the show.
Yeah, if there's like a big thunderstorm.
If there's a thunderstorm, which we headed out because we thought we had to, and then everybody else went back in.
Headed back in, yeah, bad move. And we ended up on the outside, didn't we? So,
for this day we aborted.
Finally, we went to a lot of the shows, and the shows are really good for the disabled people. They've got a separate line that you go to. You either get into an area right at the very front, or you get into an area right at the very back. But one way or other, you've got a designated area where you've got a good viewing point. There's chairs, there's always chairs by the side of you for your family to sit as well, or your pushers, so you're not, again, segregated. We found that really good, didn't we? There wasn't any shows that were really bad. And, of course, the last show, the main show that everybody wants to go and see is the fireworks. And the first time we went to the fireworks, we realised, we actually stood on the sidewalk like everybody else.
Yeah.
And it was okay, but there were a lot of people barging in and getting in front of you.
By the time the fireworks came on, they were filling every spot that they could possibly find.
And they get in front of you, they don't care. They don't care if you can see or not, they just stand in front of you. The second time we went to see it, we realised they got a designated disabled area, and again, I thought it was just for the pass holders, but it wasn't. It was anybody with a wheelchair or pushchair could go into this area. And tremendous view, absolutely fantastic view. Same at Epcot in their show. We had a little area that we went to that was right on the edge of the lake. You couldn't ask for a better viewing point. So if you are going to the nighttime shows, look out for those areas and just walk up to the people on the rope and say, "Can we come in?" And they go, "Yeah, no problem," and you go. And
but just beware, you have to be there early, and you can be there 2 hours before a show.
You can, if you want the front row. Yeah, and we always wanted the front row. So that is it from us. I hope it's been helpful, and we will see you again really soon on what we're going to do next. Jamaica. We're going to Jamaica. We're going to show you the food in the restaurants. So until then, have fun, and thanks for watching.
Bye.
I've got to rush because we're running out of battery.